Dream World is by far the most busted card/mechanic we have had in Chaos Zero Nightmare essentially since its release. It's so busted that at the beginning of this Great Rift cycle, most of the decks in the top 20 masters were centered around Dream World, a card that plays itself and that plays the whole deck automatically. And even now, after a week where everyone is essentially copying each other's deck and the score is based on RNG, draw luck, crit RNG, and all this sort of stuff, there are still, every now and then, decks in the top 20 masters that use Dream World. That's how busted it is. While Cassius and Nia are the two that in their Great Rift benefit the most from a Dream World save file, it's something that you can build on virtually every character, as long as your mental sanity is not impacted by it too much, because grinding for Dream World save data can be a little bit of a pain. The reason why it's so strong is that it provides a huge bonus/bonuses to your team's performance at no cost while thinning itself from the deck. It's absolutely amazing. Of course, it's more variable for controllers who have access to this specific epiphany, 4 stacks of morale for each Dream World that is played or discarded. But other combatants can benefit from it as well. This is something important to remember because a combatant like Adelaide, who is a Vanguard, does not have access to 4 stacks of morale on Dream World. You can get action point generation, which is still valuable, but not the 4 stacks of morale, which is something that is important to remind you, because I've seen multiple people on Reddit spending tens of thousands of currency trying to get 4 morale stacks. They couldn't get it, and they went on Reddit to complain, but it doesn't work like that. You cannot get that epiphany on a Vanguard. Similarly, if you're building a main damage dealer for Dream World, you are not going to get 4 stacks of morale, so you will have to stick with something else. This is a save file for Narya. I was working on it, things were going well, but unfortunately the RNG gods didn't show me any ways to copy Dream World a few extra times, so I will have to use some currency from sortie mode to complete this save file. On the other hand, I was offered this save file for Mika, who is absolutely phenomenal because not only does it have 4 Dream World cards and only 3 of her own regular cards, but also I have an extra 40 points left, meaning that I can apply a couple of of Divine Epiphanies on Source of Water and Blessing of Waves. In this video I will show you how to set up a run to have a Dream World save file for one of your combatants. The reason why I'm specifically saying one of your combatants is that Dream World save file tend to work better in teams where everyone or at least a couple of combatants have it. Which means that when you're building a combatant in a Chaos run for a Dream World save file, it's very likely that there will be a dud for the whole run, not being able to provide much help to the rest of the team. So you want to have a couple of combatants who can carry you comfortably. In this case, for me, it would be Hidemari and Narya, and then a third combatant for whom you want to build a Dream World save file. Before you even start a run for Dream World, you need to decide whether you want a save file with or without Persona card. Some Persona cards are amazing, they provide huge bonuses for the team as a whole, but they cost 20 points of faint memory. This means that if you have 4 copies of Dream World and you have a Persona card, you will not be able to remove 3 basic cards from your deck. It's going to cost too many points. So you either have to dial down the amount of Dream World, 3 instead of 4, or you need to keep some basic card in your deck, which is something that I did in a few of my save files. A very important piece of equipment for Dream World files is a Lonesome Wedding Ring, because it allows you to automatically discard a Quietus card in hand. Dream World costs 3 action points, which is a little bit painful, so if your starting hand has some Dream Worlds, you want a way to automatically get rid of them. It's easier if you have Hademari and her Ego Skill, but otherwise it can be a little bit painful, and a Lonesome Wedding Ring helps a lot. We can obtain it from an encounter that we meet very early in a run, but it's not something that I would consider an absolutely must-have on every character, but it would really help to have at least one combatant in your team with a Lonesome Wedding Ring. You absolutely want tier 15 and you want to enable trauma mode. Getting a Dream World save file is fairly expensive in terms of credit, because you will have to hit multiple shops to try to remove all the cards that you want before the end of the run, get gear on your combatant, hopefully decent gear with good engravings. And there is always the chance of finding more copies of Dream World from the shop, and it's not cheap. So a modifier that reduces credits at the beginning of a run can be a bummer, but it's something that you can make up along the way by hitting more event nodes. We can often generate credits from there, and instead of hitting normal battles, trying to go for more elite battles where we can get gear that you can recycle for credits. Once you start the run, you're in the hands of a god, literally, because what you want to see is this blessing that you can see on screen right now, that you trade hit points or credits in exchange for a random neutral legendary card. It's not easy to find this specific blessing, and when you pick it, you're not guaranteed to get offered the Dream World. You could be offered 3 random Garbo cards. So, if you don't get this blessing offer, you need to restart the run. If you get this blessing offer but not Dream World, you need to restart the run. How long can it take you to find the Dream World this way? It varies a lot. It happened to me that I got a Diana save file with Dream World on the first run of the day, but it also happened to me that it took me multiple tries to actually get a Dream World right off the bat. The longest it took me while I was recording this video was about 9 minutes of rerolls. Usually it's more in the range of 4, 5, 6 minutes, so not too bad. On Reddit and Twitter, every now and then you will read of people who will claim that they spent 8 hours rerolling and they didn't get it, so I'm assuming they were not even in the correct game mode. I don't know, because that's not how RNG works, but this could be a bit time consuming, so maybe find something to watch in the background while you do it. Once you do find that blessing and it gives you Dream World, the run is for the most part done, unless you want a really Omega perfect save file. The reason being that eventually during a run you're going to be able to get at least a couple of copies of Dream World after defeating the bosses, if you manage your cards properly, and you can always add one in post-production. I always like, during my Dream World runs, to try to hit as many shops as possible. So in this specific run, I had a look at the path, and although there was a wasted rest node, I decided to go bottom path to hit an extra shop before the first boss. When given the opportunity, it's always nice to be able to remove cards from the deck, because we want to remove 5, and if we can avoid spending cash from the shop to remove extra cards, it means we'll have more cash to purchase copies of Dream World or to improve our gear, which is something that we may definitely need to do. And since I do not want tactical analysis in this deck, and I want to have it removed before the first boss, I removed that one first instead of one of the basic cards. At the first shop I was trying to fish for an extra Dream World, but it's not easy. At the very beginning of a run, being offered a piece of equipment with the 50% attack increase is really nice, but it's not likely. Usually when a run begins, I insta-pick a removal, because the first 2 are cheap, costing 80 and 120. More card removal is always goated. It's very nice to find more card removal before hitting the first boss, because it helps us to, again, save money from the shop and reach the first boss with a set of cards that hopefully allows us to guarantee that we will copy Dream World. Then, when I hit the last shop, thinking, oh, let's see what I can get. Oh, an extra copy of Dream World. This is amazing if you can find one from the shop, because you can get essentially an extra copy of Dream World without paying the extra save data cost that is attached to the last copy of a card, which is the reason why I was able to get this kind of save file. A trick to remember when defeating the first boss, but it also applies to the second one, is that if you only have 3 cards that can be copied, and you have some epiphany to unlock, Always pick the duplicate option first so that you are guaranteed to duplicate the card that you want. Then trigger the Epiphany so that if you unlock a card that you don't want in your deck, you don't need to worry. It's not going to be added to the pool of cards that can be duplicated. You unlock it later, and if it's a dog shit card, you don't need to worry about it. Hello, Whirlpool. Second half of the run I followed a similar strategy. I wanted to hit more shops, because now that my deck is for the most part done and I just need to remove a couple of cards, I should be able to do so by hitting 2 shops, but then I also want to hit as many as possible to try to improve my gear, which at the moment is not particularly ideal. At the first shop I can remove one of the 2 remaining cards that I don't want in Mika's deck. After that I will be able to focus more on gear. Unfortunately we are at a stage where removing cards from shops becomes quite a bit expensive. This event is phenomenal. The option that you want to keep in mind is center right in the dialogue options. If you pick the center option first and on the second selection you pick the right one, you're going to get 300 credits, which is going to make your runs a lot easier overall. I will add a link in the description for the Epic 7 bot, which includes all the events. If you meet an estate at the beginning of a run, asking him to give you some cash, it could be pretty valuable. Here, since I'm very late in the run and I have enough credits to do everything that I need to, I asked him to apply for an engraving, but they ended up being Arbo. For the last boss, you need to keep in mind the trick that I mentioned for the first boss regarding the epiphanies. You may reach this point and still be missing some epiphany cards. If you do, and there are cards you don't want to duplicate, remember to first select the duplicate, copy Dream World, and then trigger any epiphanies that you may be missing. Unfortunately, at this stage of the run, it's impossible to get better gear, so any changes will have to be done in post-production, hoping that you get a basic piece of equipment that makes sense for the combatant that you're building. After duplicating the last copy of Dream World, the save file is essentially done. What you will do in post-production is make sure that all your Dream World copies have the correct epiphany, so Morel 4 if it's a controller, or, whatever you may want. And if your gear is not particularly good, you may want to do another run to see if you can get it better. Personally, I wouldn't worry too much, because if you have a fairly basic Dream World save file with whatever gear, but you have the correct cards and the correct epiphanies, that is going to be more than enough. And you also have to consider that you want to build multiple characters for Dream World, and it can be quite time consuming, so before really trying to focus extensively on a specific save file to get perfect cards and perfect gear, I would advise you to have multiple combatants with Dream World save file, and then you can decide whether you want to perfect their save files or move on to something different and more engaging. Since I have an extra 40 points in this save file, thanks to the shop kindly gifting me an extra copy of Dream World, I will be adding a Divine Epiphany on Source Water for draw 1, and a Divine Epiphany on Blessing of Waves to make it cost 0, and then I will reroll the copy of Dream file that currently has draw 2 in order to give it the same 4 stacks of morale as the other copies. Getting this save file didn't take me too long. In addition to the length of the run, it was well under 10 minutes of rerolls. Some people may consider that to be fairly lucky, but in my experience, I was always able to get Dream World in way less than 10 minutes. So, good luck to you if you want to give it a try. It's a fairly fun, it's not particularly engaging, but it's an interesting mechanic, it's very powerful, and it essentially enables true autoplay game mode in Chaos Zero Nightmare. So I would highly suggest you to get a couple of combatants, ideally Cassius and Nia, to start with a Dream World save file, and then decide where to go from there. Good luck on your endeavors.